Welcome to this review of the book Rethinking Citizens and Democracy with the author Tendai Murisa and myself, Belinda Chawara. We are now reviewing chapter 4, which is Citizens and Protest, the Rise and Fall of Hashtivism in Zimbabwe. Tendai, welcome. And Tendai, talk to us, what is Hashtivism? What does that mean?
Okay, so the defining feature of the chapter is to say citizens also engage in protest, because I think the other chapters also look at what other things citizens do. So in the chapter, I sort of chronicle before that the different ways of protests that were happening in Zimbabwe until we get to the stage that I call Hashtivism, which is around 2015, 2016. I think there was a month in 2016 where we had more than 33 protests. So there was literally a protest for each day in that month, and we were on the verge of overtaking Johannesburg as the epicenter of protests. And this was driven by the utilization of a hashtag. So it could be a hashtag Chaimbiza, it could be a hashtag Tajamuka Sesjigile, or it could be a hashtag this flag. And I think hashtag this flag was, of the three that I tracked, was the most popular, maybe given the sort of the background and the profiling of the leader. Other hashtags did not really spend time investing in the leaders. And also, it's important for us to connect that moment with the global moment. That's when we had the hashtag Occupy Wall Street. Then we had hashtag Black Lives Matter, hashtag Me Too, etc. So they were all leveraged in this and using social media platforms. And also, I've forgotten there was another one called hashtag Occupy Africa Unity Square. So all these happening more or less at the same time and raising issues that have a local sort of impression, but also with a global connection to them. The implosion of the economy, implosion of livelihoods. For instance, hashtag this flag actually started by Pastor Ivan Mawarire. Starts off by a crisis, which is an individual crisis, but connects with others, just about the increasing cost of living and affordability of things like school fees, etc., and the collapse of social service delivery. But because of the resonance of the issue, he manages to connect together with others at a very short time, and then they begin to develop all these actions, etc. And I think for us in Zimbabwe, hashtag or Hashtivism, its peak is the arrest of Ivan Mawarire. From then on, we actually begin to see a decline in actions that are taken, etc. So that's in a nutshell. But the idea being to mobilize using social media platforms. So these are movements that leverage technology in terms of articulating their message, in terms of even sort of mobilizing others, and also their protest strategies, some of them actually just based on being on the internet.
And you talk about how mobilization has shifted from formal spaces, where we talked about trade unionism in the previous review, into sort of these informal groups online. But how influential have these hashtag movements been? Have they dealt any made any dent into citizen engagement at all? What do you think?
I think they played an important part. I think at the moment, and even in the book I raised this to say, besides being a critique of the state, criticizing the lack of service delivery, sort of failing policies, etc., it's a huge critique of the establishment in civil society, NGO-based approaches, etc., and the more or less the dominant actors in civil society. Because what you are getting are new actors coming into the space without sort of the clout or the support of NGOs. There's actually tension amongst NGO actors to say, how do we support or do we watch? Because these were ad hoc, organic, coming from the communities, etc. So that's number one. But number two, and this is very important, they helped to demystify politics to an extent that many others felt they could connect. So hashtag Shaimbiza, starting in Matebeleland with Woza, etc., was literally to say, ports are empty, we can't afford. And many women could connect with that. And the action was so popular, you just have to carry a pot and keep on hitting it. And Ivan's messaging was also very popular and common, and it connected with many people. So they could connect at that level without going through what some of us have become experts in, coming to an advocacy message and doing this. They just went into the streets, etc. But therein also lay their challenge. Because in being ad hoc, they also did not think long term.
Right.
They did not think of how to sustain the struggle. So they may have caught, and others have said this, I think one author, Miles Tendai, called them popcorn-like moments that they will come and go. And this is exactly what sort of has happened. But we also saw them, so these are the popular ones. But in 2019, in January 2019, as we were talking about fuel prices and there was those disturbances, the way in which information moved from one city to the other was through the leveraging of technology, especially WhatsApp. But it unfortunately led to the destruction of property in a violent way, etc. But the way in which mobilization happened was also, again, about leveraging technology.
Young people and Hashtivism, where are they placed?
So these the movements that I sort of analyzed and the moments in which they took place, they were on the one hand, they were in animation, they were novel in terms of how they were emerging, etc. But they were also driven by the youth. And these were youths who were not, some of the youths may have been associated with an opposition party, but most of them were youths who were not involved in mainstream politics. And these were youths who were not involved in mainstream civil society organizations like NGOs. So these were outsiders who had been sort of frustrated by the process as it is unfolding, and also then began to find ways, because this is a low-cost way of mobilizing. It's a low-cost way of engaging. It's a low-cost way of speaking truth to power. And they found this as a way of beginning to say, we also have a voice through this. But like I said, it was transitional. It was just transitory. We did not see it establishing a base and becoming long-term, etc. We did not even see it formalizing into sort of new organizations. Yeah.
And speaking about, being sustainable or going in long-term, most of the movements related to hashtags have been related to protests. What other forms of engagement are possible with these hashtags?
Yeah, well, protest in itself does not solve everything, but protest opens doors to other avenues of engagement. So, for instance, hashtag this flag, it culminated in one way. It culminated in a meeting with the central bank governor. Some of the leading actors within that movement sat with the Reserve Bank governor and raised their issues around that they do not trust the bond coins that were being introduced at that moment. And they actually extracted a promise from the central bank governor to say it will not be inflationary, the rate will not collapse, it will remain trading at 1-to-1, which is, of course, now a broken promise. But it culminated in that. So in many instances, you always hope that protests lead to some form of engagement with office holders somewhere. But at times, they did not get that chance. But what they did is they raised the issues, the inequalities, they raised the challenges with increasing authoritarianism, etc. And at times, in a space like Zimbabwe, that is enough, because it then keeps the issues that are affecting the country at front and center. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for that review tonight.
Sure. Thank you so much.
And just as a reminder, of course, the book Rethinking Citizens and Democracy is available on the Civil Institute website.